Blue White Tailgate presented by Rich Coast Coffee. Todd Sadowski, Phil Grosz, I'm Steve Jones. Great to have you with us. All right, so let's get to it here. And Phil, obviously, they didn't win the game, yet here's another one. They came close and didn't quite work.
Yeah, people kind of concentrate on the things they had problems with the defense, and Blake Bortles is probably, in my opinion, maybe the best quarterback, they're going to see all season. Nobody in the Big Ten, I think, really compares to him. But there was a lot of positive things, Steve. I thought the offense played extremely well. And what can you say about Christian Hackenberg?
Yeah, he played very well. And once again, Todd, your impressions?
Well, one of the things that I thought at the beginning of the year was watching this team this year would be a lot like watching Chip Kelly and the Philadelphia Eagles. There's going to be wild momentum swings, and don't ever count Penn State out of a game because of their offense. But because of their defense, we're going to see some of those wild momentum swings, and they're going to get down, or in the games you're going to see some lapses from the young secondary and from a defense that is a little thin.
Now time for Sounding Off, presented by the Family Clothesline. Blake Bortles in conjunction with Bill O'Brien.
Yeah, it's an awesome place to play. We're privileged to have the opportunity to come here, and we took advantage of our opportunity. It's a great crowd, great environment.
We made too many mistakes on both sides of the ball. We fumbled there at the end, and we were rolling pretty good then, and we just can't do those things.
And so they have some, you go through something like this, Phil, as we always heard many times, you're never as good as you think you are when you win, never as bad as you think you are when you lose, but still a couple of things that they have to fix and adjust.
Yeah, and it's a learning process, and people have to realize this with this Penn State team. At a lot of key positions, there's a lot of young football players, so it's going to take some time. Offensively, I think they're ahead of where they expected to be. It's the defense that's really got to clear up most of the problems after the game against USC.
And Todd, it's the final non-conference game before they have a bye week and then the conference starts.
We talked about Eastern Michigan on the schedule. Did that come at the right time right after Syracuse? You think it does. It's the home opener, gives those guys a chance to get loosened up at Beaver Stadium. I think Kent State is falling at the right time on the schedule as well. After a tough game, you get one more game that you're supposed to win before you enter that Big Ten schedule. So this could be a good tune-up for the Big Ten.
And what do we really know about Kent State? Well, last week they played in Death Valley against LSU. This week they go to Happy Valley in Penn State. Their punter, place kicker, kickoff guy, Anthony Melchiori, on what we can expect from Kent State.
It gives us confidence, but it's not gonna alter the way we prepare. So we're not going to prepare, differently just because, a so-called smaller school beat Penn State. We're still going to go in with the same preparation, the same mentality, and just try and go in there with confidence and, play the way Kent State football plays, which is tough for 60 minutes.
That's Anthony Melchiori, the punter, place kicker, and also kickoff guy. Let's get to the series now between the two. Limited meetings between them. Penn State's won all three. You see that first meeting back in 1965? Well, the guy who was in charge of student affairs at Penn State for many years, Bill Asbury, played in that game, which brings us to, upon further review, presented by the Penn State Bookstore and our good friend, Fran Fisher.
As the aging process moves on its scheduled course, it's weird how one's memory toys with the mind. With the Nittany Lions hosting Kent State this weekend, I do know the last meeting was 2010 because I was at the game and Penn State won 20-7. What do I remember about their first meeting in 1965? Three things. It was Rip Engel's farewell season as Penn State's head football coach. Penn State won, and I listened to Tom Bender and Mickey Bergstein do their radio thing. But my memory was refreshed even more some years later when I first met Bill Asbury, who had just been hired at Penn State. I asked him, "Why does your name sound familiar?" And he said, "Maybe it's because I played football for Kent State, and we played here in 1965. Bingo! Bill Willie Asbury, the Golden Flash ace who went on to play for the Pittsburgh Steelers." Then another name popped in my mind, Dave McNaughton, Indiana, PA native. Dave was Penn State's fullback on the 1965 team, and he outgained Asbury in that game. Now it's the fourth meeting of the two teams. Okay, guys, let's make it 4-0. This is Fran Fisher for Upon Further Review.
Fran, as always, thanks. Phil, last non-conference game, I just talked to Todd about that. What do you think they need to do in this last non-conference game before they get to the Big Ten?
Well, I think they need to get out to a quick start and get an opportunity to develop some rhythm on defense. And what I really want to look for in this football game defensively is the play of the defensive ends. I've been disappointed with Deion Barnes and the inability to get to the quarterback. You know, last year they had 16 sacks from their defensive ends, and Deion Barnes has yet to get a sack so far this season, Steve.
So some of the things that they're looking for along the way. Coming up when we continue on Blue White Tailgate presented by Rich Coast Coffee, we'll take a look at the Nittany Lion offense. They rang up better than 450 yards last week. They also scored 31 points. Todd, Phil, and I back in a moment to talk offense after this. We welcome everyone back to Blue White Tailgate, getting you ready for Penn State and Kent State Saturday at Beaver Stadium. Offense better than 450 yards, 31 points. Todd, you felt like if they had one more possession, they had them.
Absolutely, and I think everything you wanted to see from this game, you could see in the first two possessions. Central Florida goes down and they score, and right away, Penn State answers on offense. 4th and 2, no hesitation from Coach O'Brien, a true freshman, Christian Hackenberg, to a true freshman, Adam Brenneman, to convert the play. We saw Richie Anderson, another freshman, Geno Lewis, an explosive play from Allen Robinson, 44 yards on that drive, and then they go ahead and punch it in and tie this thing up. If the defense can keep them close, the offense can win the game.
Time now for our drive of the game presented by our great friends at Stocker Chevrolet, located on the Benner Pike across from the Nittany Mall. Our drive of the game, as the Nittany Lions are able to punch this thing home, starts with Christian Hackenberg. Hackenberg looking downfield and finds Jesse James. That's turning out to be quite a combination between the two. But Penn State was able to balance this game out. Good, strong running once again up front, and the offensive line doing a great job moving the pile. And then Hackenberg finishes the drive off to Allen Robinson in the corner for the touchdown. Now, college rules say that you have to have 1 foot in bounds, but in the NFL you need 2. That is an NFL receiver right there. Allen Robinson getting a pair down, and the Nittany Lions get the job done. And he, by the way, is our offensive player of the week. Allen Robinson in 2.5 games has racked up numbers that some receivers don't get in half a season, Phil.
This kid is going to be a tremendous NFL player. I think Stan Hickson probably said it best. What he said, he's probably the best wide receiver that he's had the privilege to coach, and how competitive he is on the football field. This is a coach in Stan Hickson, has been in the NFL, been at the college level, has had wide receivers in the past like Michael Clayton, who were first-round draft choices. So if he says he's the best wide receiver he ever had, I think right now he's the best in college football.
Another 149-yard game. But Todd, in your previous answer, you referenced the younger wide receivers, and we're seeing some of them move to the front and really give them some balance with Allen Robinson.
They're not wasting any time getting the ball to Richie Anderson, and they're getting them out in those screens, the hitches, right away they're getting the ball in his hands, so they want to see what Anderson can do. Brenneman had a career best, couple of catches. We're starting to see him develop a little bit more as a true freshman. And then Geno Lewis also, not only in the return game, but also as a wideout. So to see all these freshmen playing together right now and how successful they are, boy, it bodes well for the future.
All right, let's get to the guy that's the trigger man, Christian Hackenberg. Let's look at his numbers to this stage of the season. And Phil, when you look at what he's done, that's just in the conference, but there's a feel that he has for the game that's special.
Yeah, you know, George O'Leary probably said it best. After the game was over in the locker room, they were talking to O'Leary, and he would not believe reporters when he told them that he was in high school just 3 months ago. That's how long he's been on campus, and he's just unbelievable. His control of the game and control of the clock reminds me almost of a senior college quarterback. It's just phenomenal.
Well, can I play on that real quick? Because the expectation, I was reading from Coach O'Brien, he was talking about the 71 percentile completion rate.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, I expect him to complete every play. So the expectations are really way up there for this guy.
There's no question about that. And not only that, but there was a moment that after Zach Zwinak fumbled that Christian Hackenberg went back and he started talking to Zwinak. And Bill O'Brien says that shows some of the leadership qualities in his young quarterback.
He's improving with that every week. He's a self-confident kid, not in a very... He's just got a really good demeanor. He's sure of himself. He knows that he has good ability. He's a good person. He's a calm guy, and you know, that's good. And I think the team feeds off of that, and the guys have a lot of confidence in him.
There's no question they have a lot of confidence in him, but also the offensive line showed a growing confidence on Saturday.
Oh, yeah, they're starting to get together that balanced offensive attack. You look at the running game. Zach Zwinak with 6.1 yards per carry is the lowest yards per carry average on the team. I think Belton has over 8 yards per carry, and Lynch is over 7 yards per carry. And that's going to be very, very important, I think, Steve, because when you get that balanced offensive attack, then you take a lot of pressure off the young quarterback.
And Adam Grosz is a part of that group that is progressing at this stage.
I think all around we really came together well on our run blocking. I think our game on the ground was great. We had a lot of plays that broke for a solid amount of yards, and even our shorter gains were still 5 or 6 yards, which is great.
And he's part of that group that's coming on without question. That third down, there's been a lot of focus on third down. I have a different take on third down. They've lost one game by 3 points, and you feel third down is going to get better. Yeah. I mean, there's no question it's going to get better, and they've done this so far without it.
4 of 34 third down conversions for the year. They're at a torrid pace. You can expect them to convert 1 third down every 3 quarters so far this season. So they're going to get better at it. Sometimes you feel like maybe they should just spike it on third down because they're 5 of 6 on fourth down. That's how well they're doing. But it's got to get better.
Right, and that's the thing. You see what they're doing offensively. You know third down's going to get better. All right, so John Stroh is a guy that is our master on third down, and so we turn to him to break it down.
Got to get off to a better start on first down. On third down, 3rd and 5+, I felt like there was going to be a little bit more space. We'll continue to try to improve every single day on all aspects of our offensive side of the ball. We had thrown the ball, I think, almost 85% of the time last year on third down. Now you're in 2nd and long, and you're already off schedule. And that was more game planning by me, and it didn't work out too good. We'll improve, but it needs to. There's no question about it. It has to improve. You know, we're scoring points, but we definitely have to do a better job on third down. That starts with me.
The Penn State offense has been pretty effective in 2013, averaging over 33 points per game. However, there is one alarming statistic. Of the 123 schools that play in the NCAA's FBS, Penn State ranks 122nd in third down conversions with 13 3-and-outs. And it doesn't take an academic All-American to know that can't continue.
Say we need to be more productive more often. We can't have 3-and-outs on offense. That's just something that we can't deal with, and we also can't have penalties. That kills a drive.
O'Brien knows there's no magic cure to the team's issues on third down, and there's a multitude of things that need to improve.
Part of it's we got to call better plays. I have to call better plays. Part of it's we have to execute better. Part of it's what we're doing. Part of it is we're 1st and 10, and then we get a holding call, and it's 1st and 16, and we're behind the 8 ball. We're behind schedule. So I believe it'll improve because I do think we're a decent offense. I don't think we're where we want to be yet, but I think it's just one of those things that is not very good right now and needs to improve. Believe me, I get it, but I think it will improve.
Penn State was 2 of 8 on third down in the loss to Central Florida, and it was actually an improvement. And senior tackle Adam Grosz knows it's a problem they'll have to keep chipping away at.
I think the most important thing is just to keep on working at it. You know, we have specific periods in practice where we work on things like, well, we work on each individual down. And, you know, it's important for us to keep on making progress in that area, obviously.
11.8% on third down may be good enough to beat Kent State, but it won't survive the Big Ten schedule. For the Blue White Tailgate Show, I'm John Stroh.
Phil, there's too much talent. You know it's going to improve.
Yeah, I think the situation on third down is they got to do a little bit better on first down. And then they have a tendency to make some mistakes, maybe press a little bit on third down situations. And if I think they do really well on first down, I think those problems will clear up.
Coming up, we'll take a look at the Penn State defense. And a little bit later in the show, we'll sit down and talk with ESPN's Chris Fowler. All that and more as we continue on Blue White Tailgate presented by Rich Coast Coffee.
There are no games on the schedule in the conference that aren't winnable at this point based on what I've seen. Even the road game at Ohio State, which will be tough, but I think it's still winnable.
Welcome back, Blue White Tailgate. We roll on here getting you ready for Penn State and Kent State Saturday at Beaver Stadium. Look, the defense, we know it's a focal point. That's a heck of an offense they played, though, and a really good quarterback.
Listen, they got a real learning experience, especially the young cornerbacks on Penn State's football team, Jordan Lucas and Trevor Williams. As I said before, I don't think they're going to go up against a better quarterback than Blake Bortles for this entire football season, Steve.
Let's take a look at the point breakdown so far for the Nittany Lions. You can see what they've done. Most points allowed at home. And you go back to that Miami game. They won the national championship, by the way. Central Florida, and, of course, that BC game back in '92, which was homecoming and Tom Coughlin's biggest win at BC back in '92. Now we get to the defensive side. And Todd, you took a closer look. What findings did you get?
Well, mixed reviews on the defense. Some of it certainly was the defense, and some of it was Central Florida's execution. And if you listen to Coach John Butler, sometimes you just have to tip your hat to the competition.
We didn't hold anything back. There's nothing I can look at and say, I wish I would have called that. We called everything on the game plan. I'm just going to keep saying the quarterback played well, and that's what, when you have a quarterback that plays well, it's tough on the defense, and we just got to do a better job against a good quarterback like that.
You always want to feel like you could do more to stop your opponent. Here's a couple of examples why praise is heaped upon Blake Bortles after this game. First drive, third down, look at where he puts this ball. Jordan Lucas is right there, but only the wideout has a chance. Nice grab, and it leads to a TD. Second half, going the other direction. Again, Bortles to the outside shoulder. Josh Reese has it. Hard to have better coverage than Trevor Williams on this play. The quality of the QB is not debatable, but the Nittany Lions know their tackling, to put it kindly, was not up to their standards.
Missed a couple tackles and stuff like that, so it goes again. You have to get better. It's just improve on that little stuff. We're not playing Penn State defense at all. That many yards, it's unacceptable. So we have to come back and be better.
We just gotta work on tackling. We gotta get better, and just keep practicing hard. Keep fighting every day.
Storm Johnson rained on Penn State's parade all day long. The Knights had 10 plays of 20 yards or more. Perhaps none shocked the Lions and the fans more than Johnson's electric touchdown run.
Those are tough plays to swallow, because you're trying to put it, you want to keep, we wanted to keep him inside. We knew he wanted to get to the perimeter, but obviously that's a tough play.
On the rare occasions the defensive line put pressure on Bortles, he did make mistakes, including his first interception since last October. But the times they threw him to the ground were few and far between.
He was throwing the ball in about 2 seconds, and usually when you sack the quarterback, you're getting them in about 3. So he's getting back, reading the coverage, and he's throwing the ball.
We're just doing a quick game the entire game, and the ball's out there quick, and a lot of play action, stuff like that to slow down the D-line. So that's all the stuff they did, and we have to get better, and we have to read it better, react better. So that's what we're going to do.
Despite a shaky 3.5 quarters, the game was still there for the taking. The Lions' defense could not get off the field.
You got to get stops. You got to get critical stops on third downs. You got to get takeaways, and that's what we just didn't. We were changing our coverages, changing our fronts, blitzing a little bit. Third down, blitzing a little bit. They basically executed well with everything we did.
So you can't throw up your hands and say we just couldn't stop them, but they just couldn't stop them. And Bortles made some fantastic throws. You got to create pressure up front if you've got a young secondary. They were not able to do that. Williams and Lucas did an admirable job at times. They were beat by an NFL caliber quarterback. They're not an NFL caliber secondary at this point, obviously, very young. And so that's going to happen.
Yeah, it will. And in a conference where Teddy Bridgewater is going to get all the accolades because they're not in the ACC yet, this guy is stride for stride with him at quarterback. He went 230 straight passes without a pick.
Yeah, quite a learning lesson for Penn State. We'll see how they use that as they go into the Big Ten schedule.
And no question. It's a learning experience for a young secondary. It was the third starts respectively at corner for those two guys, among others. Boblets, Johnson. You keep going through the names that only have played 3 games or started 3 games in their career on defense.
That's what Penn State fans have to realize. It's the same situation that is on offense with Christian Hackenberg. Unfortunately, they aren't just at the same place that Christian Hackenberg is right now.
And one quick note, you noticed in Todd's package there was that play to J.J. Wharton near the end of the game with 2:42 left to go. Fans are saying they didn't stop the clock, they kept running the clock. The officials called it right. You do it until there's less than 2 minutes to go in each half. The officials had it right on that play, just so you know. Our defensive player of the week, Malcolm Willis. His third career interception, which stopped the streak of Blake Bortles. Bortles had not thrown an interception, as Todd said, since October last year, until that play by Malcolm Willis near the end of the half that killed this 2-minute drill by UCF. All right, so we take a look at that. Let's talk about coverage for a moment. And John Butler discussed man coverage, zone coverage with us earlier.
Very rarely are they going to get their head around the man coverage because you're playing your man and you're reacting to the ball. So that's you're never going to see them doing that. Now in zone coverage, they're going to have their eyes on the ball. But a lot of times in man, they're running next to them and they're just going to try to play through the ball or bump them off the route.
Experience you talked about, Phil.
Oh, yeah. They tried everything in that football game. They had zone. They had half man, half zone. They had a zone with a safety over the top. It is a learning experience. And just like Todd said, as long as you don't get that good rush from your front four, a young secondary like Penn State has is going to struggle.
Yeah, no question about that. Now, goal line stand, though, was big in this game, and it really put the game in the balance.
It was, and like we said, just give the offense a chance, and the defense did. Now, we thought they scored. They got called back a little bit, and then, you know, they stopped them cold at that particular point. So they did come up big on the goal line stand.
And that's our hit of the week, as they lined up toe-to-toe at the goal line, the defense knowing that they had to keep them out, and did. What a stand. Glenn Carson, Daquan Jones, I mean, right there, right over the top, and there is no movement at all.
Every ounce of energy to keep them out of the end zone.
You get that right. So now they have to try and right the ship against Kent State. This is a tone setter, I think, for them with the bye week coming up.
Yeah, and I think the tone setter is in the first quarter right away. Let's see, now that we talk about the offense, how they're going to start the game. I want to see how the defense starts the game, and I want to see, you mentioned Deion Barnes, Phil, I want to see if he comes to play on Saturday.
And coming up, we'll take a look at defensive backs on the horizon for the Nittany Lions when Todd and Phil return to take a look at recruiting, and Chris Fowler a bit later as we continue on Blue White Tailgate.
Thanks for joining us on the Blue White Tailgate. It is now time for our recruiting segment sponsored by Central Pennsylvania Dock and Door. With me, the publisher of Blue White Illustrated. This is your thing. It is recruiting. And the first question I have for you, Phil, does a primetime loss like that at home to a non-conference opponent hurt recruiting?
I really don't think so. Over the years I've been following recruiting, that's usually one of the things that's down on the docket for a big-time type of recruits that Penn State tries to get after.
Okay, so Nittany Lions fans worried about that. Don't hit the panic button. Not
That's
that
right.
big of a deal. And I've always found that defensive players, if that's what you're looking for, they just want to know that there's a good offense that can win the game. You can recruit defensive guys as long as you got a good coach to recruit offensive players.
And with Penn State having scholarship limitations, what they got to do is they got to recruit kids that are versatile, maybe can play on both sides of the football field. And that's what Penn State's really done with the class of 2014. They have 4 kids. They have a guy named Marcus Allen, no relation to the Heisman boy, a kid named Nick Scott, Daquan Worley, an outstanding running back, defensive back from Coatesville here in Pennsylvania, and then Troy Vincent Jr. Yes, he's the son of the Troy Vincent that had a great NFL career. And kind of Worley and Scott kind of illustrate the versatility they got. Well, Worley's already rushed for 600 yards in 3 football games this year, and he's also an outstanding cornerback.
Well, and the funny thing about those guys is you can recruit them for one position. They may not stay there. Trevor Williams is only in his 3rd game in the secondary, and he came as a wide receiver.
Yeah, that's what the sanctions and the limitation, the 65 scholarship limit does to the Penn State football program. That's especially true, Todd, of the skill positions on both offense and defense.
Yeah, one of the other ways you recruit is you dangle that carrot out there for a special trip. And our own Elise Murkowski talked about the trip to Ireland that's coming up next year.
Surprised at the level, the brand awareness there is of Penn State in Ireland. I mean, it goes back a long way. I'm not sure why, but so in terms of college football, if you ask people in Ireland to name college teams, Notre Dame, Penn State would probably be the first 2 names they would come out with. So that's why Penn State was a very easy choice for us.
Second only to the Fighting Irish isn't half bad for a team that's known for its Italian coaching legend. Penn State will make its first international trip as they face UCF at Croke Park on August 30th. Duffy says everyone involved will benefit from the game.
All the fans of both schools who come to Dublin, as an organisation and in terms of the Croke Park Stadium, we believe it'll be a very positive experience for everybody. As I said earlier today, we want to replicate the positive experience people have on match day here and perhaps make it even better in an Irish context, a little bit different.
The winner of the inaugural Croke Park Classic will take home the Dan Rooney Trophy in honor of the former ambassador to Dublin and Steelers owner. Rooney was on site at Beaver Stadium on Saturday to comment on this historic game.
Awful lot now. Once I heard, it's what it means and how it came about and talking about how old it was and things like that. It's a real honor for me to do this and have the trophy named after me.
While the atmosphere will be a bit different from a typical Happy Valley tailgate, Duffy says Dublin is ready to host Nittany Lion faithful.
What we want to do is that the two colleges, UCF and Penn State, when they come to Dublin, they will see the same level of enthusiasm. It'll be different. I mean, tailgating will be different in Dublin because Dublin's a different city. The stadium is very close to the city centre. We think it'll be easy for people. We want to make it a different experience, but still carrying the best of what happens on a match day here. And we're pretty confident we can do that. We're actually enthusiastic and excited about the challenge that faces us.
To kick off the 2014 campaign, Penn State hopes to have a bit of the Irish luck in Dublin as they seek revenge over the Knights. For Blue White Tailgate, I'm Elise Murkowski.
All right, thanks, Elise. What do you think, Phil? We're going to see you doing a pub crawl in the Emerald Isle next year?
I hope so. We don't know if that's the case, but I think there's a good chance I might end up getting there.
All right, I'm going to keep working on Penn State for a spot on the team plane. In the back, I don't care. It doesn't need to be first class. Just coach is fine with me. All right, let's look at the injury update. Sponsored by Health South. We've got a pretty clean sheet for the week coming up. We knew about Wilkerson, Bars, Lehman. Mike Hall, day-to-day, coach said he's pretty sore.
Yeah, that's probably the only one really of note right this way through the season. They got to get him back and get him healthy.
Yeah, and we expect to see the linebackers get a little bit more going on for next week, and Mike Hall certainly is a big key in that.
No question about it. O'Brien said he's the best football player we have on defense.
All right, and we're going to take a look at their opponent. Kent State will break down the Golden Flashes, one of the best nickname in college sports, but not one of the best teams, so it looks to be a victory for Penn State. We'll see how they can get it done as we break down Kent State coming up on Blue White Tailgate.
Welcome everyone back to Blue White Tailgate presented by Rich Coast Coffee. All right, Kent State. Not exactly a great start, Bowling Green, and then they go to LSU. You're not going to have a great day at LSU.
Yeah, they really struggled against LSU. Without Dre Archer, their preseason All-American, do everything guy on offense, the offense has really struggled. It's the defense for Kent State that's really been a disappointment. What are they, 117th in the country right now in defense, giving over 450 yards a game.
Yet last year, though, really good, which allowed Darrell Hazel to get the Purdue job. That means Paul Haynes takes over as the head coach. Let's take a look at the Paul Haynes file that we've worked up extensively, but there's a lot of experience, including some Big Ten experience there, Todd.
There's always a Big Ten connection, isn't there, against some of the non-conference teams that come in. He was with the Buckeyes from 2005 to 2011, and anytime you look at a team that you're not familiar with, maybe you try and identify a couple areas of concern and some things that could cause you some trouble. They have a redshirt freshman quarterback, but he hasn't thrown any interceptions, has a pretty high completion rate. So, these guys can be efficient out there on the field, and they've already experienced the big game atmosphere. They were just in Death Valley. It doesn't get much tougher than that. So they're not going to be intimidated coming into Beaver Stadium. They were just at LSU last week.
In fact, their problem is that Spencer Keith, a veteran quarterback, really good last year. They gave Northern Illinois a real run for their money in the MAC. Dre Archer's been hurt, and they built everything around him.
Yeah, we were talking before the show. It's like Penn State back in the 1990s when they tried to do everything with Eddie Drummond on the football field. And right now, offensively, they have that redshirt freshman quarterback that's doing well in Reardon. But they're essentially a run-first, power running game between the tackles, and that's what Penn State's got to stop.
And head coach Paul Haynes does have a lot of confidence in his redshirt freshman quarterback, Colin Reardon.
I think the receivers are playing better. They're catching the ball. You don't have a lot of drops. and it's getting him confidence because you see he's spreading the ball around, not just sitting there. A lot of times a young guy would just sit there and find one guy that he's sitting there and he's throwing to, and I think he's sitting there and he's spreading around because he has confidence in the receiving core.
And that receiving core led by Tyshawn Good, who had to set out all of last year. But here's a guy, Todd, with 6 career 100-yard receiving games.
Yeah, and they've also got Chris Humphrey, so they've got a couple of guys that can go to. Humphrey has scored a touchdown in a couple of games, 2 in a row. So it's the kind of passing attack. You mentioned it's run first, but when they do go to the air, it's a short passing attack. Reardon was 20 of 29 for 190 yards against LSU. So they're looking for efficiency. They're looking for a lot of completions and methodically take it down the field. They were able to get a 9-play, 75-yard drive at LSU. That's not easy to do.
Not easy to do at all, especially in that atmosphere. They had a Thunder and Lightning running attack. Lightning's gone, but Tryon Dern's the Thunder.
Yeah, I think what they'll try and do, have that possession passing attack. They want to control the football. They want to keep Christian Hackenberg and the Penn State offense, which is very explosive, off the football field. That's the only way, in my opinion, they can stay in this game.
Well, Mayweather just fought last week. That's why we love the tail of the tape. So let's go to the tail of the tape. And it looks like this between the Penn State and Kent teams. It looks like this. Total yards, what they've done so far, rushing, passing, and you see the points to this particular stage. So when you look at this, let's get to the defensive side of it. They have a really good player that I think Todd can play for anybody, and that is Roosevelt Nix. Built low to the ground, automatic leverage.
Yeah, and you mentioned the statistics to us earlier. His statistics, 5'11", about 290, and when you do have that kind of leverage, as you mentioned, Steve, when we were talking off camera, you're already below the offensive lineman. You mentioned that leverage, you can get that push in there. But let's look at the flip side. He doesn't have much around him. They gave up over 300 yards rushing against LSU, and Penn State is churning it out on the ground right now. Phil gave us the golden stat earlier. Zach Zwinak, 6 yards a carry, and that's the lowest on the team. So we look for a good day on the ground from Penn State.
Adam Grosz, one of the bigger offensive linemen, knows they're going against the smaller, quicker group, a different challenge than last week.
It's definitely something different compared to guys like UCF who had a lot of big guys. These guys are smaller, but they're definitely faster, and they really know what they're doing up front. They have a lot of good guys on defense, and we've been watching film on them already, and we're gonna prepare for it.
And there are others around them, like Matt Dellinger, Devontae Strickland, but a guy in the secondary that's really good is Luke Wallet.
Yeah, he's experienced. I think he's the only senior in their defensive secondary. He's a smart football player. He doesn't have the great athletic skills. He reminds me of the guy Kovac at University of Michigan.
Yeah, Jordan Kovac.
Jordan Kovac. He's that similar type of football player. Tough, understands the game, and has the ability at times to make the big play.
And he has 10 career interceptions and is a good punt returner when they put him back there as well. Now let's go to the tail of the tape one more time. And the tail of the tape between these two, you can see what they've done matchup-wise here. So, I mean, Todd, when you look at it, I think the door's open for Penn State on this because look at the number of points they've given up, albeit 48 were at LSU, but they gave up a lot of points to Bowling Green.
Well, and you look at the number of yards, they've given up more yards than Penn State has on offense. It's pretty similar, and you think, hey, we've been pretty successful on offense. So Penn State's defense has been gashed a little bit. The one thing I will say for them, they have one of the greatest nicknames, don't they? The Golden Flashes. Into that name thing. I love it, the Golden Flashes. But I'd love it even more if we sent them packing with a couple of touchdown victories.
They have a superhero name.
A superhero name. I like that. Yeah. But people forget that one of the reasons that Darrell Hazel ended up getting the Purdue job is that Kent State was actually the school a year ago in the MAC that they were talking about maybe breaking the BCS party. Right. It turned out to be Northern Illinois in the end, but that's how far they had progressed as a program, Phil.
It's been one of the solid, programs in the MAC. They have Miami, Ohio as the cradle of coaches. Well, there's been a lot of great coaches over the years that have come out of Kent State, too. They're one of the signature programs of the MAC, no question.
Yeah. Well, somebody that's always at the next level that we greatly appreciate. Doing college game day is a very difficult job to do, yet Chris Fowler pulls it off every week with relative ease. We'll talk with him in a moment as we continue on with White Tailgate.
And a team that is still emerging in some key areas. 2-1's not bad, and you look at the bigger landscape of the Big Ten.
We are back on Blue White Tailgate, and I can't tell you how excited Phil Grosz is right now for this segment. He's going to introduce one of his good friends and host of College Gameday. Take it away, Phil.
Yeah, that's Chris Fowler of ESPN. Chris and I have been friends for about 20 years, and it's great having a guy like him on the show. No question about it, Todd.
All right, well, Chris, thanks a lot for joining us. We really appreciate it. And, of course, we're talking about Penn State. So give us your early impressions of the season for the Nittany Lions.
Well, first of all, great to be with you guys. Phil's right. We've been friends a long time, and he's been a valuable resource for me, he and his publication, for covering Penn State over the years. So it's my pleasure to be here. Yeah, UCF was a disappointing loss, but not that unexpected for me. So sitting there at 2-1, given some of the areas of weakness for this team, the lack of a pass rush, the atrocious third down conversion. I mean, those are important stats, as you guys know. To be lacking in those areas and beat 2-1 with a close loss is okay. I mean, it's not as good as being 3-0, and I think Penn State fans would have expected that. They fully expect to be 4-0. But I think with a freshman quarterback, Hackenberg, who has impressed all of us nationally with what he's done so far, and a team that is still emerging in some key areas, 2-1's not bad. And you look at the bigger landscape of the Big Ten, there are no games on the schedule in the conference that aren't winnable at this point, based on what I've seen. Even the road game at Ohio State, which will be tough, but I think it's still winnable. I think it's encouraging so far, although, you know, you want to see key development in a couple of those areas that we talked about.
You know, Chris, everyone here at State College is talking about Christian Hackenberg. I even know Trent Dilfer, your buddy at ESPN, thinks he's one of the best high school quarterbacks, freshman high school quarterbacks to come on the college scene in a long time. What's your impressions of Christian been?
Tremendously talented. That's obvious by watching him. From what I hear, extremely bright, extremely coachable. George Whitfield, who's the quarterback guru that we've hired at ESPN, he's a contributor on Game Day now, has worked with Christian as well as so many other top quarterbacks, gives glowing reports about him. And I think one key thing that I've seen the first couple of games is that when Hackenberg has made a mistake, and freshmen are going to make mistakes, right? But his have been pretty good ones. I mean, the kind of disastrous turnovers that lead to opponents' points and can change momentum, he's come right back. He's recovered quickly. He hasn't dwelled on the mistakes. He hasn't let them rattle him, and the ensuing drives have produced points. So that's a very good sign. I think very few guys who are his age, won't be 19 till November. There's lots of guys playing high school quarterback that are, you know, older than he is. It's pretty remarkable. I think people like what they see. They're projecting out a couple of years improvement, and there's no reason to think he won't be one of the best quarterbacks in the country.
Well, Chris, you mentioned the third down conversion rate. We are better than Florida International. we do have them beat, but on the defensive side of the ball, a little thin. So can you break down the defense for us, because they're going to face some pretty decent offenses coming up in the Big Ten schedule.
I think the defense has to make more plays. I mean, I hear 5 sacks in 3 games isn't enough. Not getting in the backfield often enough. As Phil knows, you do those publications where you prize recruits at that position, defensive line difference makers. When a defense doesn't have one, it sticks out. I mean, look at Texas A&M against Alabama. Where I think that a defense like that has taken a step backwards. They don't have the playmakers off the edge. They don't have guys getting into the backfield and causing chaos. And Penn State certainly doesn't have that yet. I mean, Jones with a couple of sacks is a guy you think has some potential. But you couple that with giving up more big plays than you want to. UCF, I believe it was 10 plays of 20-plus yards. That's just too many to give up. And even though that offense has some speed, Penn State will certainly see offenses in the league that are capable of big plays. You got to button that up and get in the backfield and you know, be more aggressive. You know, they're allowing teams to convert a little bit too much on third down as well. So, you know, disruptive playmaking ability needs to improve a lot, in my opinion.
You know, Chris, I just want to change the focus. What does Bill O'Brien mean to Penn State football program, and what's your impressions of Penn State since the situation that took place, you know, back in 2011?
Well, the sanctions were brutal, and I said it the day they came down. I thought the sanctions were heavy-handed. I thought they would be almost impossible to overcome in the short term and the long term. So what O'Brien's done to me is remarkable. I mean, to get 8 wins out of the team last year, was a remarkable job. And I think his presence has steadied the ship. It's the reason why Hackenberg didn't decommit while he's there. Well, he's able to, I think, continue to attract talent. You're going to lose guys. It's going to be tough recruiting. You're going to continue to have to be spot on, not miss, as you know. But he has brought a steadying influence. I think he's convinced people that he will make them better football players, and his expertise at the next level will help them achieve their ultimate goals. It's very important. I can't say enough about what I've seen from the outside, and I'm not there at practice. I'm not in meetings, but I can just give you the observations from afar and from a national perspective. And I think everybody, you can't fail to be impressed by what he's done so far.
Well, Chris, we thank you very much for joining us. And if it's okay with you, Phil's going to continue to name drop so he can get free meals at the tavern in State College.
I drop with Phil. I mean, I use Phil's name. So as I said, this is a two-way street that goes back a long time. But I'm appreciative of the relationship with you guys.
All right. Thanks a lot, Chris. We really appreciate it. Phil and I will be back. We're going to give you some keys to the game coming up and wrap up Blue White Tailgate.
Welcome back to Blue White Tailgate as we go from Chris Fowler and his national take to our national take. And we start out with a look at the top 25. No real changes from last week. It's still Bama, Oregon. Now look at Clemson. There's a team on the rise there. Question is, can the tradition of Clemson, where they seem to falter at some point, come into play? And there's Ohio State as well. Top 25 matchups, and doggone, Phil hit it right on the nose. There isn't much going on this week. I mean, Arizona State, Stanford's pretty good.
Yep.
I mean, Clemson, NC State, all right, well, we'll see. All right, let's go around the Big Ten now. Florida A&M, Ohio State. UConn's at home with Michigan. Maine. Okay, Michigan State, Notre Dame's not bad.
Good game.
Yeah, it's a good game. Now, that's a good game. Then Purdue, of course, will play at Wisconsin.
I wonder if Wisconsin worked on their 30-second drill
That
at the
was
end.
bizarre.
One of the weirdest finishes I've ever seen.
I mean,
I'll tell you, I blame them as much as I blame the officials in that situation.
Poorly handled by Wisconsin as to how they did it. Very poorly handled by the Pac-12 officials as well. And that's how you end up with a bizarre ending.
Yes.
Stave should have handed the ball to the official and taken it off the ground. But that's for another day. Let's get to our keys of the game. Phil, by drawing straws, you get to go first. You go first every week.
I don't know. Why is that, Steve?
We want to hear the stage.
Well, what I want to think is I want to see the defense really put some pressure on the quarterback, stuff the run against Kent State, and get a fast start on offense. Get an early start early so you can play some players.
Right, and I think that's the other part, too, is I think they need to go through, play a complete game, really set the tone going into the bye week.
Linebackers. I want to see the linebackers. We talked about the defensive line trying to create pressure. We talked about the young secondary handling it. Kent State wants to run the ball. I want to see the linebackers stuff the run, as you mentioned, but I want to see those guys show up.
Right. And I think this is a tone setter.
Right.
I think so.
This is a confidence builder. This is a game after UCF that they can rebuild their confidence going into the Big Ten schedule.
All right. Our set, by the way, from our great friends at Aaron's. Now, last week we had an ugly incident where Phil tried to take it home to watch the games, but that's okay. That's how comfortable they are. Thanks to Aaron's for that. For Phil Grosz, Todd Sadowski, I'm Steve Jones. For our entire crew, enjoy the game this weekend with a 3:30 kickoff at Beaver Stadium. Blue White Tailgates presented by Rich Coast Coffee.